Guys, Jared Wiggins here at Tekno RC. Today we're going to cover our 4 new differential parts, starting with Tkr9115b. These are new internal gears for the front, center, and rear differentials. These are compatible with all the 2.0 series vehicles. These new gears have a slightly bigger pitch and a different tooth count to allow the diff to feel a little bit thicker, and it makes the car more stable, especially on power and at high speed, and just gives you a better, easier car to drive, a little bit more acceleration off the corner, and especially in those grippy track situations, just more overall stability. The second part up is the new O-Rings Tkr5144b. These O-Rings are a little bit bigger than the standard red O-Ring, and they seal tighter, and they actually do change the way the car drives. They also add some stability, especially at high speed or any switchback sections in the track. Anytime you're on power and changing direction, adding these O-Rings in will increase the stability of your car slightly and also seal your diffs even better than before. Our third part is the new Differential Cup Tkr9115b. This case can replace your current Tkr9115 diff cup that comes with the 2.0 series cars. This cup has a slightly different internal design to make the diff feel a little bit thicker and give you a little bit more drive and stability. It is, as I said, compatible with any of the current 2.0 cars and can be ran with either the new gears talked about also in this video or with the old gears. So it doesn't really limit you. Whichever setup you want to run, you can use this cup or the current cup. Our last item here, Tkr9145, is a new differential shim. This shim is keyed in with these little tabs. It keys into the diff cup through the cross pin slots and allows the shim to be stationary and not to spin like our standard black round shim that we've used for a long time. This shim provides a little bit more resistance in the diff and makes the car more stable, allows you to use slightly lighter oil, and overall just increases the stability and the drive off the corner in your car. These 4 parts can be used in any combination with the 2.0 series vehicles. You can run any gears, either gear with either cup in any combination with the O-ring and the shim, new or old, giving you the ultimate tunability with your differentials. Alright, now let's get on to the assembly. So right here I have laid out a complete diff. It just needs to be assembled. So the first step, the way I usually start, is grab the cup, put your 8x16 bearing on, and outdrive. I already greased it, but you'll want to make sure you put a line of grease in this little groove here. Install that, wipe off a little bit of the excess grease. Then we'll flip it over and install the new O-ring, Tkr5144b. This O-ring is a little bit larger than the standard O-ring that came in the 2.0 series vehicles, so it installs a little bit differently. We want to put a little dab of grease, work it around with your fingers on that O-ring to make sure it stays lubricated, and then we will pop it onto the shaft of the outdrive. Next, we grab the shim. Take note on the shim, there is a bend on these little fingers, so you always want that bend to be facing the center of the diff, or the inside of the diff. So take that bend into account right there, and when you put it in the cup, you want the bend facing upwards, so that way your shim can sit all the way flat on the bottom of the case. So these little fingers key right into your cross pin slots. So when using the round shim, you didn't have to worry about that, but you still could use the round shim with these new O-rings in the case. But just for the sake of using all the new parts as we run them, we'll put it in with the new shim. So make sure that's keyed in with your bends facing upwards. Put that on there, and then I like to just take needle nose or some other just tool to put in there and push this shim down until you hear it snap in a little bit. And you can also just pull the outdrive out and back in a little and push down, and you'll see that that shim is seated flat on the bottom of the case. So once that's flat, you can go ahead and put in your pin, just like normal. Make sure that's centered out. And then install your gear, whether you're using the new gear 9150B or the current 2.0 gears 9150. This process is the same. Just keep in mind now there's only one pin slot on the back side of the new gear. So you don't have the two options to put in, it's just one little spot. So make sure your pin's centered, pop your gear in, sits flush with the top of the outdrive, put your gears on your cross pins. Right now I'm using the standard steel cross pins, but we do have aluminum ones as an option. Put each side together. Make sure your notch is facing up for this one and facing down for your second one so they key together nicely. Everything fits together good. So moving on, we'll go to the other side, your ring gear side or your spur gear side, depending if you're building a front or a center differential. Put your O-ring on, or put your bearing on, and then greased up outdrive. This one's already got grease on it, but make sure you put the grease in the groove. Put that on, wipe off a little bit of the excess. Then move to the O-ring. It's a little bit easier to see on the gear side since it's not sitting down in the cup. So just like the gear side, take the O-ring, put a little dot of grease on it, and then work it around with your fingers. Take that O-ring, pop it on, and just like the other side, you'll want to seat it down since it's a little larger. But before you do that, you'll have to put on the gasket. So if you're using the standard round shim, you can put the gasket on after because it fits inside. But with the new shim, it'll have these little fingers and it keeps the gasket from being able to be put on after. So keep in mind you need to put your gasket on first for everything to sit together properly. Line that up. Then we can take the shim and pop that on. And I just push down to hear that little snap of the O-ring seat in place. So then try to put your shim where the fingers are in between your holes in the gear. Put your pin in. And we want it to try and line it up as best as possible. So everything, this pin straight across with your shims, and then your fingers are right in between the holes. And this will come in handy when we're putting this all together. It makes the install much easier. So then we'll go here. This diff's empty just to make it easier to show in the video. But if we did have oil in it, you'd want to put the gear on, wipe the excess oil off with your finger, and make sure it's not overfilled. And then we'll take, and just like this side, we'll line that slot up with the cross pin slots, so it's straight across. And then you'll take your gear side lined up as well, and it'll all fit together. And keep in mind too, just like the bottom side, you want these little tabs on this shim to be facing up away from the gear. That way they can slot into the case and everything fits together snugly. So then we'll put this together. And you'll feel it snap in place, and you can see that the whole of the case is touching this ring gear and everything's in properly. So make sure that this is seated together. You don't want to squish that shim in between. It's pretty easy to notice, but it can happen where if you don't have that shim keyed in, your gear won't be on straight and the diff will leak and not perform properly. But once you get this all together, you can put your screws in as normal and your diff is built up and ready to go.